I came home to find her sitting on the couch with some scruffy-looking guy. Tattoos, ripped jeans, and a cocky smirk on his face. Mandy was sitting close to him, laughing like he was the funniest person in the world. Something about the way they were sitting didn't sit well with me.
This is Jason. We're starting a new life together. And we've both decided that there's no room for you in it.
I froze. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What are you talking about? This is my home too.
Not anymore. Jason and I need a fresh start. You don't fit into it.
Mandy, please. I don't have anywhere else to go. Jason stood up with a stupid, smug smile on her face.
You heard her. Pack your stuff and get out.
You can't do this. Mandy, I'm your sister.
I've done enough for you. It's time you figured things out on your own. Leave my house.
I cried as I packed everything I could into 2 suitcases. Mandy didn't even look at me. She was too busy laughing at something Jason said. When I was done, I dragged my bags to the door. I looked back at Mandy one last time, hoping she'd stop me, apologize, do anything to show she cared. She didn't even glance up. I walked out, dragging my bags down the hall with tears streaming down my face. I felt like my heart had been ripped out of my... When our parents died, I was only 19. Mandy, my older sister, was 25, and the only family I had left. She took me in, and for a moment, I thought it would be a fresh start for both of us. But Mandy wasn't the same person she used to be. At first, it was small things. She'd boss me around, criticize everything I did, and make me feel like a burden. If I folded laundry, it wasn't done right. If I cooked dinner, it wasn't edible. Once I made a simple pasta dish to surprise her after work. She walked in, took one look, and scoffed.
What's this? Dog food? You can't even boil pasta properly?
She dumped the entire pot into the trash without even tasting it. I tried hard not to cry while she ordered takeout, and I told myself it was just stress, that she was grieving too. I thought she'd come around. But it only got worse. Mandy started bringing guys home. Random men, strangers, to me. She never introduced them, and she didn't care how uncomfortable it made me feel. One night, I was watching TV when she came in with a guy, giggling like a teenager.
Are you blind, Sasha? Can't you see I'm with someone? Stand up and go to your room now.
She spoke to me like I was a child in front of her guest. I was so embarrassed, but I did as she asked. Then there were the nights she'd kick me out entirely. It didn't matter if it was midnight, if it was raining or snowing outside, or if I had an early shift the next day. If Mandy wanted the place to herself, I had to leave. One night, it was pouring heavily when she came home with another guy. I was sitting at the kitchen table, working on my laptop, when they walked in.
Sasha, you need to go out tonight.
It's raining, Mandy. Can he just do with me staying?
He can't. And I don't care if it's raining. Get out of my house and find somewhere to stay the night.
I don't have anywhere to go.
Not my problem. You're not staying here.
It felt like I was nothing more than an inconvenience. I packed a bag and left, the rain soaking through my clothes as I walked to a nearby hotel. I used the last of my paycheck to get a room for the night. It wasn't just the guys. Mandy found other ways to remind me that I didn't belong. She'd use my things without asking. My clothes, my makeup, even my laptop. Once, I caught her wearing my favorite jacket. Mandy, that's mine.
So? You're not even using it. Also, you're in my house, and I'm not complaining. I can use your things whenever I want.
When I tried to stand up for myself, she'd laugh like I was being ridiculous. If I complained, she'd throw it back in my face.
You're lucky I let you stay here at all. Do you know how much rent costs? If it weren't for me, you'd be on the street.
Her words cut deep because, in a way, she was right. I didn't have anywhere else to go. Mandy also made sure I knew my place. She never introduced me to her friends or included me in her plans. If she was going out, I wasn't invited. If I asked her for advice or help, she'd brush me off like I was a child. But when she needed something, I was expected to drop everything and help her. One time she called me at work, demanding I come home immediately to clean up the mess she and her friends had made the night before. Mandy, I'm at work.
So, it's your turn to clean. Come home now, or don't bother coming back at all.
I left work early that day and got in trouble with my boss. Mandy didn't care. I hated it. Every moment in that house felt like walking on eggshells, but I stayed because I had no choice. I couldn't afford to move out, and I didn't want to burden my friends by asking to stay with them permanently. I kept telling myself that things would get better, that Mandy would change. But deep down, I knew the truth. Mandy didn't see me as her sister anymore. To her, I was just a burden. And no matter how hard I tried, nothing I did was ever good enough. Then, she met Daniel. He was rich, charming, and completely smitten with Mandy. For the first time, I thought things might change. Maybe she'd settle down and we'd finally have some stability. When she told me we were moving into a new apartment, one Daniel was paying for, I was excited. The apartment was incredible, like something out of a movie. High ceilings, a city view, everything you could imagine. I thought this was it. A fresh start. But Mandy didn't change. If anything, she got worse. She'd go clubbing almost every night, and she brought different men over nearly every day. I would hear her over the phone lying to Daniel and saying she was home all day. Sometimes she would ask me to speak to Daniel to confirm her words, and I'd lie with her. 3 months later, I came home to find her sitting on the couch with some scruffy-looking guy. Tattoos, ripped jeans, and a cocky smirk on his face. Mandy was sitting close to him, laughing like he was the funniest person in the world. Something about the way they were sitting didn't sit well with me.
This is Jason. We're starting a new life together. And we've both decided that there's no room for you in it.
I froze. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What are you talking about? This is my home too.
Not anymore. Jason and I need a fresh start. You don't fit into it.
Mandy, please. I don't have anywhere else to go. Jason stood up with a stupid, smug smile on her face.
You heard her. Pack your stuff and get out.
You can't do this. Mandy, I'm your sister.
I've done enough for you. It's time you figured things out on your own. Leave my house.
I cried as I packed everything I could into 2 suitcases. Mandy didn't even look at me. She was too busy laughing at something Jason said. When I was done, I dragged my bags to the door. I looked back at Mandy one last time, hoping she'd stop me, apologize, do anything to show she cared. She didn't even glance up. I walked out, dragging my bags down the hall with tears streaming down my face. I felt like my heart had been ripped out of my chest. She wasn't just my sister. She was all I had left. After Mandy threw me out, I didn't know where to turn. I was completely lost, sitting on the curb with my bags and nowhere to go. But that night, my friend Lydia came through for me after I called her. She took me in without hesitation. "You're staying with me, Sasha, no arguments." I felt both relieved and guilty. Lydia didn't owe me anything, yet she treated me with the kindness Mandy never had. I learned later that Lydia's cousin was Daniel, the same Daniel who got Mandy her apartment. He'd been taking care of both of us until I got kicked out. He'd been the one paying most of her bills. It was a month after Mandy kicked me out that Lydia brought me to Daniel's office. She wanted me to help her drop off some documents for him. I didn't expect much from the meeting, but when Daniel walked into the room and saw me, he instantly recognized me.
Sasha, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be in school?
I didn't understand what his question meant until he told me that Mandy informed him that I wanted to go back to school and that he'd sent all the money I'd be needing to her. I couldn't believe my ears. Even after she kicked me out, she was still using me. I told Daniel that Mandy has kicked me out since a month ago.
What do you mean? I've been sending Mandy money every month for you and her.
For a moment, I couldn't process what he was saying. Mandy had been collecting money from Daniel for both of us? Even after kicking me out? She was definitely giving the money to Jason. She's been lying to you this whole time. She's been cheating on you too with multiple guys. One of them is living in your apartment with her right now. I could see how angry and disappointed Daniel was. He asked me to tell him everything, and I did. I told him how Mandy treated me since our parents died, how she used his money, and how she threw me out like trash. I didn't hold back. After I finished, he sat silently for a moment. Then he spoke again.
Mandy doesn't deserve my help, but you do. I'm going to help you, Sasha.
He explained that he was sponsoring Lydia's education abroad and wanted to include me in the plan. Not only would I get the chance to study, but he also planned to give us joint management of one of his businesses overseas. We'd be paid for our work while pursuing our education.
You deserve a fresh start, Sasha. You're so young. You deserve something way better than the life your sister gave you.
I didn't know when I burst into tears and began thanking Daniel and Lydia. They were both my saviors. Daniel didn't confront Mandy right away. He ended their relationship quietly, cutting off all financial support without explaining why. Mandy was furious, but Daniel refused to engage with her. A year passed, and I thrived in my new life. I was studying, working, and finally felt like I had a future. But then one day, my phone rang. The number wasn't saved, but I recognized Mandy's voice immediately when I answered the call.
Sasha, it's me. Please don't hang up. I need to talk to you.
Part of me wanted to end the call right there, but curiosity got the better of me. What do you want?
Talk to you. I need your help.
Her voice was shaking, and she sounded like she'd been crying.
Jason left me. He took almost all my savings. That bastard never liked me. He was only there for the money. And after Daniel broke up with me, I couldn't give Jason as much as I used to. So he left me. And now I'm pregnant. I don't even know if the baby I'm carrying is his. If it's not Jason's, I can't even guess who the father is. I'm so broken.
Mandy had always been reckless, but this was beyond anything I'd imagined.
And that's not the worst of it. I tested positive for HIV. I can't afford treatment. The landlord kicked me out because I couldn't pay rent. I have nowhere to go, Sasha. Please, I'm begging you. Help me.
For a moment, I wanted to pity her. She was my sister, after all. But then I remembered everything Mandy had done to me. How she'd treated me like garbage. How she'd thrown me out without a second thought. I don't know who you are, Mandy. Ever since you kicked me out, I've considered you dead. I'd like it to remain that way. Please, don't call this number again. Before she could respond, I hung up and blocked her number. I didn't regret it. Mandy had made her choices, and now she was facing the consequences. She wasn't my problem anymore. I later heard that Mandy gave birth to a boy, but since money was tight, she ended up washing dishes at a restaurant while taking care of her son. They lived in a tiny one-bedroom flat, and due to her illness, she had become so pale that she could no longer attract any man. As for me, Daniel and I are now married. We heard that when Mandy saw our wedding photos, she collapsed and fell down some stairs and broke her leg, but was too ashamed to tell her colleagues the real reason for her collapse. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe for more interesting stories coming up.